Hey, welcome back to the Happy Little Node Trees Davinci Resolve color grading tutorial thing. If you watched my previous video, I know there were some issues with the power grades. I did upload screenshots of my settings just to make it easier to input those node numbers into the DISM to have something similar. I'm going to look into how to fix having those power grades using those dctls be available, because I know my file path for where I keep my dctls are a little bit different than where you might keep yours, and some people informed me that there was an issue. But live, learn, get better, and it's all going to be good. Today's episode is going to be on scattering light. I'm going to be using Scatter, which is a paid plugin. I'm not sponsored, so don't worry about that. I just use it, and I just wanted to talk about some new interesting things that I've been thinking about, and something that some people had pointed out, and then I started trying, and then I was like, well, I kind of like that. So we have our footage here today, just a woman at a pool in a mountain scene. Looks good. We have it basically coming in at into DaVinci Wide Gamut. Here's my base tree just floating around here. And then we got, power window section in these new node layers. And then this is page 3. I've been working on where do you put this and how does this function. But this is my, this is a set of tools to simulate the spectral dye densities. If you watched the previous video that we had an issue with, the power grades, that's this section here. Then we have my, my macro level stack of nodes, and how all that goes together. I can probably do another video at some point and talk about it. It's very fluid. I'm still trying to tease out what's, the best plug and play way to drop this in. And at the tail end, we have some, my mono nodes, utility nodes to, keep an eye on that skin. Very important. Check for clipping issues. And, it does some interesting tools, but that's utility. So today, now that we are a couple minutes in, we're going to talk about scattering light. So there's different ways that you can achieve what scatter does in terms of post-production diffusion, but we're not here to talk about those ways. We're just going to talk about a different aspect of where you put these tools in your node tree and what effect does that have. I'm going to use Scatter, obviously, because that's what I use. But if you have your own method of putting diffusion in, feel free to play around with moving the diffusion settings you have and you like wherever you want. I will say this as a note. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about capturing the best quality video and giving that to your colorist and giving that to your VFX editor. And it made me really think about doing diffusion on the lens and baking that in. And I would be a strong advocate, I guess, of having done it now in this way that I'm going to show, of not doing it on the camera, not baking it in, because of the flexibility that it allows you afterwards. We'll scatter as a family of emulated filters. Ever match 100% with those filters on the camera? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it'll come close. But the point is, there's a point where close is good enough, and the benefits outweigh the very small difference. And now I know for Filmbox it's very important, Video Village is very important for them to get as close to the match as possible, and that's great. It's great for us. But if you do it on the camera, what you got recorded, that's what you got. In post, we're going to talk about this interesting technique of negative scatter. You have a lot more flexibility. You can dial in the strength. You can change what filter you used. Close to is good enough because of the benefits of being able to do it later. and making sure that you're capturing the most quality data to give your colorist to work with. Anyways, that's my soapbox. I've probably just wasted all my time today. But yeah, our tree coming in, kind of have nothing going on. Just, my in linear gamma for exposure, color balance. We're going to just kind of leave that all the same. I am using on the out JP249, which is linked in the description. It's a very good DRT that does a really nice job of rounding. I just like it. I've done CSTs, I've done OpenDRT. This is probably right now my go-to in any case. But yeah, we got these other guys going here. We're going to actually start. So these 2 pages in my thing right now are my macro level adjustments. What I would view as macro level adjustments. I don't want to change these. Once I have these set, everything else is done underneath. This is what is coming. We're working our ways back from the display to the camera sensor. You can think about it that way. But here we're going to start at the base of our macro level and start turning some things on. I've been playing around with this die simulator. I really like it. I'm going to keep playing with it. So I'm just going to turn some of these guys back on. So we're coming in from Davinci wide gamut intermediate to JP249 log intermediate space. So it's just a different way of looking at how, from what I've been told, it's as good as Davinci wide gamut, Davinci intermediate, but it's specific to how it's going to get out to the when we leave. That we are coming from log, and it just works better, this stuff, in that format, is what I found. So we're going to start by inverting. And then we're going to do a negative exposure adjustment, which is just setting our offsets to 0. That's important for when we want to make tweaks and adjustments to the exposure levels coming into our die simulator. So now we can trial some die sims. So this is Kodak Eastman 5384 settings using the status A transmittance, and then I have it set up where I got status. This one would be status M for the 5384, 2383 status A and status M. So we can see and just try a couple different things and see what we like. I'm kind of going to go for, it's sunset. It's one of those things. Let's just go with a sunsetty feel out of the gate and work from there. So this has already softened things up and it made things look nice. Her skin tone, if we were just to jump over and check her skin tones look nice. They're spot on. Everything's looking good. Everything's looking gravy. And then we're just going to hop over here. We're going to play around with things. So we have our dyes. So this is taking our digital image and pushing it through a way to measure those RGB values relative to how, if that's what you were seeing, it passed through the dye sensitivity layers of Kodak Eastman 5384. There's links to that stuff all in the bottom. So yeah, we can kind of push this density up a little bit. And this is a post-dye density adjustment at the global level. Kind of just find a happy medium. It gives us a little bit more depth. We can kind of tweak and push things. Let's see if the green grass, give it a little bit more. Just tweaking things here. I'm gonna jump over, make sure my panel is up and running and looking good. Then we're gonna hop over. Let's just be like skin density. We can kind of, it brings in those shadows a little bit more. The cool thing coming out of the dye density guy, the controls tend to let you push things a lot more. We look at how things look on the scopes. Saturation's really compressed, so you have a lot of room to kind of start pushing and pulling things back out after it goes through that dye sim. We're going to just go start here with our contrast. So turn it on, enable the curve so you can see what's going on here. Oops, wrong button. Show contrast curve. There we go. I'm just gonna bring this up and just sharpen this image up a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. Let's bring up the black point a little. Just till we start to get an effect going on here in the low end of the waveforms. Kind of don't want to be fully crushed. We're going to just tweak. Maybe bring down our white point a little. Scoops are off a little. You can see it's just rolling and finding where that high point on those highlights are. And just getting it to that spot. I'm going to just stretch out that toe length and toe strength. Just make little tweaks there. And then we're going to check on preserving the colors. Do we want to bleach it out through our contrast or kind of preserve some of what's going on in that low end? So I'm liking that. We've got a very nice crisp image. It's feeling good. There's a lot going on. There's some steam, there's atmosphere. But yeah, we're just in a happy place. It's not bad. It's kind of where it's at. We could talk about, now we're going to talk about what we actually came here for. 12 minutes in. Look at that. We are just cooking on time here. So I have some things set up. So you can see here it's labeled scatter here, it's labeled scatter here, and I have scatter here. Now the question is, what happens at the end? So here we go. If we wanted to do, let's turn off that curve guy here. So we have a little contrast, blah, blah, blah. And now we're just going to go over and tweak some of these guys here. We're not going to touch those. We're going to touch scatter. So yeah, let's just say we got some atmosphere. We're just going to turn that one on out of the gate. And yeah, let's call it fog. Just give it a nice, kind of give it a nice, like we're steamy. It's a nice little steamy scene. And we're going to turn this one on. So this is scatter coming in after our inversion. So we inverted. And now we're going to, in the inverted state, turn scatter on. And we're going to turn it on the same settings. Just fog. See what we got. Oh, do you see how that happened there? Just turn it on, off. What is this doing? So one of the things that it's doing is if we turn this one off, and we're just looking at this one on its own, in the negative, it's really just where we're at. And we can go highlight mode. Let's see here. Where's that button? There we go. So if we're looking at the highlight of turning it on and off, you can see we're diffusing the brightest parts of the image over the darkest parts of the image. That's what the diffusion layer is doing. And so if we turn this on and then turn it off, what's happening is the brightest part of the image in the inverted state is her black hair and the mountains. And so we're getting this diffusion bleed on the negative going across the brightest part of the image. And the diffusion using scatter, it's pulling the base colors to a degree from where it's coming. So that those dark colors are just now bleeding across in reverse across our image. So if we turn off highlight, we can see what we're doing here is we're just softening her. You can see the shadow forming around the edge of her head as it goes up into the highlights. So in essence, it's taking that contrast between the darkest part of the image and the brightest part of the image and kind of just smearing it together and saying we have that sharp contrast that we put in. We can go back to looking at our contrast now and maybe go, let's push it a little bit more. Why not? We just added that layer of negative diffusion. We can kind of crank it a little bit more if we wanted. So now we're up over there. And that's where we're sitting. And you can see that's starting to get a little crunchy. But what that scatter is doing is softening out. So you can see right here, when we look at the image, the highlights in her hair are very crispy. The highlights in the water, everything, right next to the separation between the blackness of her hair and that highlight glow on our hair, very sharp. We just smoothed it out, and it's pulling the colors from around. And we did set it to a strong level. I'm a big fan of Black Frost. Does the same thing. You can see it's a little bit more controlled, but it is rolling off those sharp highlights from our contrast later down the line. Mitchell is a little bit less. I do use Mitchell. I like Mitchell. But yeah, for this, it's like a kind of a foggy scene, so we're kind of pushing it a little bit hard. We can tweak the intensity, see where we're at, where we want to be on the intensity. But yeah, 2 is pretty good. But what, like I said, what we're looking at is rolling those dark colors into our highlights a little bit and softening those edges. You might not do this on every shot, you might not do this on every project. And this, by putting the scatter before, we're now rolling our highlights into the dark parts of our image. And now we got something going on here. Or if we take both of these, and turn them on and off. Very sharp and crunchy, very soft, foggy, kind of like a misty morning. My wife says it's more feeling like a sunset. I mean, the cool thing is you want to change things up and go, well, let's make it morning or a different atmosphere. We just start tweaking these guys here. And this my wife says has that more morning feel if we're going when we switch it to this color, and we kind of, maybe tweak our cyan max a little. Oops, wrong one. Tweak our cyan max a little. Kind of just, yeah, but having that double layer of scatter, like we just did, very crisp, very clean image, a lot of details, a lot of data there. And yeah, you could have did the diffusion on the camera and given me less to work with, but there's things I can do now where those details, like the water droplets on her skin, her hair, a lot of those details are a lot easier to manipulate for some of the tools in Fusion or some of the tools elsewhere. But yeah, play around with it. You can see we have both scatters on. We just turn the negative off. Just roll some of those darker colors into our highlights, and I've been liking it. So this would be the equivalent in this setup of putting a diffusion. So you can't do this unless you're filming on film. So you film on film, you get your negative print, and from transferring the negative print to the display print, which is what they would run at the movie theater, you put your diffusion layer of it. So it's your negative print getting broadcast through diffusion to its print film stock. And that's kind of what we're doing here is we're taking our RGB values from our camera sensor, inverting them back into inversion, and then pumping diffusion through that, and then converting based on the spectral densities of our final film stock. I think I was more of a fan. This is nice, but I'm more of a fan of this one. Pushing it through Kodak Eastman 5384, which, fun fact, is what movies like Aliens, Ghostbusters, I believe, I can't remember where the other one was. Oh man, it's failing me. There's a lot of great movies. Oh, Blade Runner, Kodak Eastman 5384. That's the film stock, and so the spectral dye densities, you could say, are like the fingerprint of how that film stock is encoded in that. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here. And the whole point of this video is actually of saying, in that process chain, what if we diffused our darkest colors into our highlights? And that is how we ended up with scattering light. Boom. I like it. It's nice. And the cool thing is, having this we haven't even touched our primaries on this shot. That is crazy. Like, we can come back here and do crazy things like boost it up, bring it down. We can do we haven't touched anything in our primary set to even shape this image further. All we did was, so we can make it more of that bubblegum salmon-y color steered around. But yeah, we did not touch any of these settings. We can, sometimes with the DICEM, you can boost saturation up early down the line and get a little bit more color in things. If you're feeling like the dyes squash it down, I come back under to add in some of that color. But yeah, we relatively did nothing to the image on the front end, but there's so much more that we can do, and if we wanted to. But I think I found that the more I use this DICEM, the less I do underneath it, or the less I feel like I have to do, because it just has broken apart the image. I'm at time. I've gone very long. I didn't mean to go 22 minutes today, but I did. So hopefully you enjoyed a good cup of coffee. Hopefully you think about how you do diffusion and start playing around with putting diffusion in the negative. You never know what you might find when you smear your colors all over the platter, because we're all about making a happy little no tree, and that is what is important.